Never done this before. All right, here we go. Now I think we're good, right? You still can see me. We're still here. We're still up and running. Whoosh, I tell you, it's one of those days. I think I know why OBS crashed. Jesus. Commercial break time. All right. Yeah, commercial break time for sure. All right, let's see if this works. Hold your breath. Hold your breath. Oh, look at that. It worked. All right. If you haven't ever heard of Gaming and BS RPG podcast, I co-host that with my buddy Brett. And it's an audio show. Go out and check it out. Subscribe. Most of you are not only subscribers, but patrons. So thank you very much. And we talk about Gamehole Con. It's our home con here in Madison. And Gamehole Con 9 is coming. So they first send out a email yesterday for the first email of the season, for them starting to get things underway. One shot adventure. That's the thing, right, Harrigan? We'll see. Do a refresh, buddy. Might help. So going through just their email quick. They got the plushie. What is that? What is that as a plushie? Anybody know? They don't even say what it is. They're not exactly sure what it is. It sure is cute, and we think you'll adore it. It's not a grick, right? Is it a grick? I don't know. Anyways, special guests. I figured I'd go to the special guest page because there's some folks on there. Flumph. It's a flumph? Oh, God. Maybe a flumph. Anyways. This thing. What is that? I'm a terrible D&D guy. That's why it's weird when people say, well, I've been gaming since the 80s or 70s. I haven't gamed that long, but I've gamed long enough. I just don't memorize all this stuff. Must be just, again, it's my brain. Flumph. I know what a flumph is, but I wouldn't recognize it. I've heard of flumps. Flumps. I don't think I've come across them in my travels. Anyways, so similar game. Alex and the gang over at Gamehole Con always do a bang-up job on guests, and they bring in all kinds of people. So let's see. Teos Abadiah, Justice Armin. I follow Justice. I know Teos. Let's see, Peter Bratt, best-selling author of the Demon Cycle series. You guys read his stuff. Banana Chan, Cantonese Canadian game designer, who's got some Consumption of the Monstrous, An Exquisite Crime, Jiangxi, Blood in the Banquet Hall, Scooby-Doo, Betrayal at Mystery Mansion, Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, Pathfinder, Dark Archive. Levi Combs. Some of us know Levi from Planet X Games. David Ewalt. He wrote the book of Mice and Men. Of Dice and Men. Not of Mice and Men. He's not Steinbeck. Right? Steinbeck, right? That right. But that's a good one about the inside scoop on TSR. It's a good book. Matt Finch. Some folks are fans of Matt Finch. He's coming out with the new, the Tome of Adventure Design from Mythmere. So if you are a game master, the original is really good. I have it sitting around here somewhere. I'll probably get on that when it gets kick-started. So Matt Finch, longtime old school gamer, had worked for Fraud God Games and Necromancer Games for a long time. Matt Forbeck, friend of the show, is not down too far from us. He's been working on Marvel RPG. He's I think he's like the head guy tackling that. Andrew Gasca, 2021 ENnie and UKG award-winning settings and adventure writer for Free League Publishing's Alien role-playing game. Craig, did you interview Andrew? You did, didn't you? I'll wait until he responds. which is interesting if you hadn't heard the news that the Alien RPG and fiction are kind of collaborating. So that's probably some good stuff if you like reading fiction to complement your RPGs and RPG settings. And Craig did confirm that he did interview Andrew Gaska. So if you want to know more about Andrew specifically, check out Craig, Third Floor Wars, and search for his interview. Was it Behind the Scenes series? Is that what you call it, Craig? He talks about how one thing I found intriguing about Andrew and his story was how he got Alien RPG off the ground. And it was kind of interesting because he shopped it around and nobody was interested in it and freely picked it up. And the rest, they say, is history. But anyways, check that out. Skeeter Green, no Skeeter, interacted with Skeeter on occasion. He's got a small publishing house and he also does some work for Frog God. Luke Gygax, he is the one of the sons of Ernie Gygax. I wish I could move this over. Can I move this over? Maybe I can move this over. Not gonna have any luck there. All right, we'll do this, even though I'll be looking like this. So Luke, head of Gary Con, and does quite a work. He's got his own streaming thing going on. The Stream of Gygax? No. I don't remember. Anyways, Alan Hammock. Alan, longtime TSR guy. Very super nice. Oh, these people are really nice. I've met quite a few of them. Very, very, very nice. Alan is super awesome. Was instrumental in Top Secret, the original Top Secret with Merle Rasmussen, as well as a few other things listed here, and the New World Order. He consulted on that as well. So Amanda Hammond, I have not met Amanda. Senior designer working on D&D at Wizards of the Coast. She's worked there. Paizo, Cobalt Press. She's former editorial director for Cobalt Press. So good to see Amanda. Latia Jacques. She's done a lot of DM's Guild, Beyond, D&D Beyond, community managers of D&D, Adventurers League team. Joined the cast of the D&D Stream Rivals of Waterdeep. Community relations coordinator, Monty Cook Games. John Kovalik, A Dork Tower. John just did a thing. I don't know if you guys knew this. Sidetrack since we're on John. Again, super nice guy. Lives here in Madison. Has done Apples to Apples and a few other things. He is probably best known, if you guys are familiar with Munchkin from Steve Jackson Games. He's done all the original artwork for Munchkin. So Igor and the gang so he's very close with Steve Jackson. So I didn't know this, not to get into politics or anything, but there is the elephant in the world. And so if you're not familiar with Zelensky, the president of the Ukraine, he was a former celebrity. And some may say he's a bigger celebrity now. Regardless, he voiced Paddington, the bear, for the Ukrainian version of Paddington. I don't know if it was the movie or the series or just a one-off. John found that out. I haven't confirmed this, but I can only take John for his word. He found that out, and so he drew up, a big, huge bear, and then Paddington staring the bear down in its yellow and blue dress, and was selling those prints that you could buy. You could either get a print of it or you could get little postcards with the art on it. And then he was going to take all the proceeds and donate it to a charity that would help, I believe the refugees of the Ukraine, if I'm not mistaken. It's some good cause to benefit the people of the Ukraine. And John, little known fact, does all the Plushie designs for Gamehole Con. So John's the artist who does it up, doesn't ask for any money for it, because as long as Gamehole Con takes the proceeds from the plushies and donates it to charity, then he's good with that. So, morning, Jim. I saw you snuck in there. So that's John. Dork Stock is kind of a side con that used to be in the past, and it used to be held at Rock Con down in Rockford, Illinois. And he's moved that to Gamehole Con, so they got a little corner where they play a bunch of stuff with John. So very nice guy. Tom Lommel, probably know him as formerly as the Dungeon Bastard, as well as probably I think he had a stint on a Progressive insurance commercial. So Tom's an actor who's a big gamer as well. He'll be there. James Lauder for Call of Cthulhu folks. He's got a lot of, publishing cred and design work, 6 Origins Awards and 2 Annie Awards. He's been a finalist for the International Horror Guild Award and the Stoker Awards, so James will be there. Greg Marks, Greg's local. He's down the street in Milwaukee. So he's done he's a D&D guy quite a bit. He's now working for, what is he working for now? Grim Hollow? Yeah, I don't know if it's listed on here. Raging Swan Press, Fantasy Flight Games, Midnight Setting. Ooh, Ghostfire Games, I think is where he's at now. Maybe? Anyways, Craig's a good guy. Mike Merles from WotC will be there. Rick Meitz, president of Chaosium. I'm kind of on the fence with Chaosium. I wasn't a big fan of what they did to my buddy Dave Beatty in Weird Tales, or I would refer to it as Dark Trails. Anyways, that's for another day. Laramie, good to see you, buddy. FYI, Ukraine is a geographic region of the USSR. Ukraine, a great country, doesn't have that as it's not a part of the Soviets. It doesn't. Ukraine, right? Not the Ukraine. Okay. Sean Merwin. He does Down with D&D podcast. I think he's still doing it. I think they might have changed the name of it. Yeah, I think it's Mastering Dungeons now, it says here. Part of the Misdirected Mark. He's Ghostfire Gaming. I thought maybe that's where it was. Maybe Mark's is Ghostfire Gaming. No, maybe I got him mixed up. Oh, he was on Ghostfire Games. So maybe they're working together. So Greg and Sean know each other fairly well, I'm guessing. But Sean's done a lot of work on 5th edition and Pelgrim Press and a bunch of other stuff. Mark Miller. Some of us that appreciate Traveler know Mark, or at least his name. So Mark Miller is known for Traveler, the RPG. He's the OG, as we say. So he'll be there. Mark, I don't know if he makes a lot of convention appearances, but he's been to at least 3 Gamehole Cons. We happen to have an episode. I say we, Brett and I recorded him at one of the gaming and Gamehole Con seminars. And so Mark, he's just down the road in Illinois. So that's probably why he comes up and he has a good experience. So if you're a Traveler person and want to pick Mark's brain, there you go. Lisa Penrose, at least I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. So she's does Wizards of the Coast, Magpie Games, Cobalt Press, Jetpack 7, creator of Mundane Magic RPG. Alexander Stangrum, director of ops at Cobalt Press. Lots of other stuff. Jeff Talanian, Astonishing Horseman of Hyperborea, or as it is now known as Hyperborea. I'd like to think I might have had something to do with that name change. I don't know. Maybe. Toot toot. I don't know. Elisa Teague. Very nice. I met Elisa. And so she's got a lot of gaming cred. Look at this. She's probably like one of the bigger paragraphs here. Designer of the Essence 20 role-playing game, the Wardlings 5e RPG, Power Rangers, G.I. Joe, Transformers RPG, Geek Out, Kingdom Hearts Talisman, Betrayal at the House on the Hill, Widow's Walk, co-designer and art director of Apocrypha adventure card game, World of the Darkness titles, Vampire, D&D AL epics for Gary Con and Gamehole Con, etc., etc. Monica Valentinelli. No Monica personally. Very nice. Award-winning author. I didn't know she worked on Cyberpunk Red. World of Darkness. I know she'd done a ton of vampire stuff. And World of Darkness products. Yellow King, Dungeons and Dragons. She worked on Firefly or Serenity. I don't think it was both, but I think it was one or the other. I can't remember. For Margaret Weiss back in the day. Looks like Firefly. I should just read it. It says right there, duh. Firefly. Like, right? Firefly. Come on. Jim Wampler, Big DCC person, Mutant Crawl Classics. Bill Webb from Fraud God Games. Everything from Fraud God Games. Bill oversees since he's the head frog. Rob Whelan, we've had him on the show. He's down in Milwaukee, so he's done work and does streaming, and does an article for Forbes. So usually if Forbes is featuring a game, Rob is probably the author of that article. Skip Williams. If you played 3.0, 3.5, you know Skip is the one that has credits on the, let's see, Monty did the DM's guide, Jonathan Tweet, and Skip, I get mixed up on what book they are on, right? Each one has a credit like on the front of the book. I think Skip is he Player's Handbook? And then Jonathan was on Monster Manual? Or do I have those switched? I can't remember. But Skip's been around since, I think he was a teenager when the Dungeon Hobby Shop was in Lake Geneva. And he's still there in Lake Geneva area. So I don't remember Skip coming to Gamehole Con. So this might be his first one. I don't know. But anyways, I've played in one of his 3.0 games at Gary Con. Nice guy. Tony Winslow Brill. I didn't know Tony was from Wisconsin, honestly. So she's done some work for WotC and Ghostfire Games, director of research, or that's her own personal job. Baldman Games. She works for Baldman Games on the side as story lead. Stephen Winter, coming from the old TSR days, but he's also worked on Tomb of Annihilation, Tome of Beasts, Midgard Heroes Handbook, and the Scarlet Citadel. Still going. And then Travis Woodall, who is Fires of California, the Time of Disco, and Bell Bottoms. So there's Travis. This is not everything. This is not all the guests. They're still going to they still say they're still building the guests together. And Gamehole Con has also mentioned that their exhibit hall is in more demand. So I think they've sold out, and there's still companies that are coming to them saying, hey, we want a booth. So I expect, barring, I don't know, a pandemic, in the October, just so somebody's like, well, when is it? Gamehole Con, Craig, I think asked, is October 20th to the 23rd. So it's probably, I think it's the earliest it's ever been. And usually, just as a well, why is it the 20th or 23rd? In case you wanted to know, it's around the Badger football, UW Badger football schedule, because of the hotel accommodation thing. So this year it's going to be October 20th to 23rd. Event submissions are going to start April 15th, which is not that far away. And then VIG renewals open a month later. If you have not been to Gamehole Con and you are, if you've had experiences at gaming conventions that have been bumpy, I can assure you that Gamehole Con is not without, something might come up. It may not be the perfect experience, but I could tell you these guys work really, really, really hard to make it the best at gaming experience convention that you can attend. So I am biased and partial, but nonetheless, some of you that have gone that have no stake in the game necessarily can attest to that or not. And I only say they have hiccups because sometimes things are outside their power, like, if you try to register a game and you didn't get into it or something along those lines because of the demand. But I tell you what, they've got their proverbial stuff together. So we're big fans. To continue, I probably move myself, I think, now. The Free League or games organized play, I'm only guessing that Alex got a hold of Free League because he had some issues with their email. And so bringing you up to date, if you're not in the know, Free League has implemented their free agents program. And what that allows is, stop it, damn cat, is to, you could sign up. It's free. They got like under 800 people that signed up for this thing. It's kind of a demo. It's a demo team is what it is. So you just run Free League events at conventions, and they ask for volunteers for like Gen Con and Gamehole Con and things of that nature. It doesn't cost you anything. If you log so many hours of game time, you get a shirt and things of that nature. So they were really interested in getting a hold of con organizers. And so it looks like Gamehole Con got a hold of them. So there's going to be a decent, it sounds like there should be a decent presence of Free League publishing games. If you run an organized play game for Free League, Gamehole Con has an exclusive Free League t-shirt. So I don't know if there is a limited amount of hours if you run one, or maybe you got to run 3 games or 2 games. But yeah, kind of a switch there. So some of the dates, and I think so, updates to come for sure. So anyways, I wanted to touch on that. The question is, will I be there? TBD. I want to, but I have other things to consider that have not changed since last year. So we'll see. Hopefully by November or October, it'll be a good time for me to do things. We'll see. Sean kind of hating, or is it my internet? Hating, halting. Oh, hey, Todd. I don't know. I should not be halting. I got some pretty decent. I mean, I don't have any drop frames. My upload speed is doing okay. So sometimes if you just refresh your own, it sometimes helps. It looks like Craig's already on it. Thanks, Craig. Skips helps organize Gary Con. He does, Jim. He does indeed. So Skip's very instrumental in putting things together for Gary Con. Craig may come out. Oh my goodness. What? But will Craig ask for the Uber, the Sean Uber? We'll see. But Victor's going to be there. Nice. All right. Next one. Top 5 role-playing games, fall of 2021. Okay. This is from ICV2. So if you're not familiar with ICV2, it's kind of the industry trade magazine. So it's really what they cater to is a lot of the retailers. But nonetheless, sometimes they'll put out public things. They're also, I think it's like ICV, I can't remember. It stands for something. But comics is also part of their shtick and board games and things of that nature. So every once in a while, they'll have an article that has to do with the state of RPGs. As a matter of fact, when Paizo and Pathfinder took over D&D as the number one RPG, ICV2 was the one that published that information. And they took it because everybody was a private company at that time, and they did the research to come up with that deduction by just determining sales of retail stores, feedback that they got, and distributors. So anyways, Sean Airbnb, right? So top 5 role-playing games fall 2021. Any guesses before we put into it? Okay, this is last year, right? They're publishing this, this quarter, looking back on 2021, top 5 role-playing games. I don't think I've seen this. I've not read the article and seen the details. The chart reflects sales in fall of 2021, September to December. Okay, so it's not the whole year. I don't know. Fall. Well, it said fall 2021. I said fall, right? Come on, guys, pay attention. Laramie's going to be a Gamehole Con. Yeah, yes, they're social for sure. Even if I'm not there, guys get together for sure. I'll help organize it. Hopefully I'll be there, but... Mouse Guard. Roger, what are you talking about? Mouse Guard's a fine game. Just don't think it's going to be up there in the top. I don't know. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. Who else? Come on. What's it going to be? D&D, maybe? Huh? I don't know. Sure, all right. Suspense is killing you, I can tell. Rank, title, publisher. Number 1. Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons. I know, shocker. Shocker. I know, you're all surprised. Sit down. Oh, I should probably tell you all to sit down first. Burning Wheel. Fatal. Fatal's got to be on the list. Cyberpunk and Aliens. Maybe. Kelly, hey, good morning. All right. Kelly, who is the top 5 role-playing games of fall of 2021? Last quarter of 2021. Number 2? Should we go to number 2? Maid. Vampire. Maybe it's Baron Munchausen. All right, number 2. I'm scrolling very slowly, and it's very much at the bottom of the screen. Second one, Pathfinder by Paizo. Another shocker, I know. Actually, Pathfinder, I didn't know. I think they've had a pretty decent kick lately. Like, more people are streaming it. More people are appreciating it. I think they're probably getting the folks that are converting from 5e and checking it out for some of its differences. So Pathfinder's back in the running as a contender for a good, strong appearance. Showing up strong. Merkberg. GURPS. Roger, now you're just throwing stuff out there. This guy. Tunnels and Trolls. Bunnies and Burrows. Blah, 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 and blah, blah. Number 3, here we go. Ready? Number 3. D&D 5e Goodman Games. D&D 5e Goodman Games. Augie, stop clawing me. Jesus, guy. Yeah, something is amok. Number 3, D&D 5e Goodman Games. You guys hear the record scratch here? Boo, for sure. What the hell? When's the last time Goodman Games made a 5e product? And I'm talking straight 5e, not a conversion like the Keep on the Borderlands, the Temple of Elemental Evil. Those are... No. They're 5e. They have 5e pieces in it, right? They have a whole, piece of 5e in it. Oh, man. 3 issues of... No way, Jim. Come on. It's DCC. It's got to be DCC, right? I can't believe it's number 3, honestly. Maybe they had a big release in the fall that kicked them up there. I don't know. But... Dude. No, now this whole thing's just gone right out the window, right? Credibility-wise. Number 4... Fallout RPG by Modifius. That must have been when it came out, right? Everybody just picked it up. A lot of Fallout fans and a lot of video gamers. Anybody here own Fallout? Jason, good to see you. Warhammer could be viable. Could be absolutely on this list. I don't know. So number 5's coming up. Let's see what number 5 is. Call of Cthulhu by Chaosium. There you go. These bestseller lists are from ICV2's internal correspondence number 101. And somebody must have got an earful when... Can you imagine like all the DCC people or Goodman Game, like even Joseph Goodman and some of the folks that are on staff, like Brendan LaSalle and Michael Curtis and Harley Stroh, all of which have been interviewed by Craig Shipman, by the way, and Dieter Zimmerman. So if you want to listen to those guys talk about DCC and their love of it, go over to Third Floor Wars and listen to more about that. But anyways, there you go. They must just be like, what the? Oh, it's kind of like, I wonder if DCC sometimes is like Rodney Dangerfield. Like they don't get any respect. Their community does for sure. Like, definitely gives them respect. But, geez, man, come on, ICV2. You know, there you go for the web. There you go for internets. Jeez, can you imagine? That would be like us going like, who's the top RPG podcast or YouTube show? And it's like, you know, somebody gets called out. It's Happy Jack's BS. You know, what the hell? All right. Congratulations to all those folks that are attempting to make money in the hobby. What do we got here? More news. I don't know if this is any big deal. We'll see. This is just some of the new releases, I think, for print news from Ian World. Checking out what's going on over there. Sometimes they got the drop. Mongoose, Modiphius, River Horse, and more. So the first one is Tome of Summoning. This is, look at this thing. Fox leather case. RG. Let's see. Here it is. Core Pack 1, Core Pack 2, Core Pack 3, NPCs families, Core Pack 1 cards only, Core Pack 2 cards only, Core Pack 3 cards only, NPCs. So apparently this is a product that includes 50 illustrated reference cards and 238 paper minis of commonly used lower level creatures. All in this thing. And it's just chock full of paper stuff that you can use, and it's an handmade studded leather tome. It's a 1-inch 3-ring binder of artificial polyurethane leather that includes 25 horizontal pocket pages, 8 pockets per page. The cards are not included in that tome, but I think so. It's separate. So it's $45 each for each pack, $25 for just the cards, and then $65 for the binder. But if you get all that stuff, so this is kind of the thing. The picture's doesn't really do it. This picture doesn't really do any of it justice. So a lot of reference cards. Let's see. I think I got to zoom out a little bit now. Next thing, Traveler. Mongoose updated 2022. So I heard it's a great game, the Mongoose version. Happy Jackson, I said this in the past, they've played it at cons and then run it. They like it a lot. So, Traveler Core Rulebook Update 2022. I don't know when the release is. Next thing, Jim Henson's Dark Crystal Adventure game. I thought that was out. So the hardcover core rulebook, $45. I'm surprised if it looks that good that they're only charging $45. 200-page adventure. 3 ribbons. God, man. You gotta be losing their shorts. That's by River Horse. Root. Big Kickstarter. Faction Dice. So Root, I think, started arriving. The long-awaited Kickstarter. Based off the board game, I believe, right? I'm not a board game guy. It's got a GM screen, campaign notebooks. So a couple things coming from Magpie Games as it relates to root or root, depending on where you are, where you're from. All right. Paizo and Fall did that really nice Humble Bundle, if I'm not mistaken. That might be out. Never tried Traveler in Laramie? If you come to Gamehole Con, Laramie, try to get into Victor Wyatt's in the chat. Victor Raymond's Traveler game. Or shit, get into one that Mark Miller's running. There you go. Just so you know, all the guests that come to Gamehole Con have to run games. Just, I don't know if everybody knew that. That's a kind of a mandatory thing. You can't go in the hotel and sit around. You got to be accessible and you got to run games. So get into Mark Miller's, or Victor Raymond is a big Traveler guy. Plays classic Traveler mini books. Won't be Mongoose, but yeah, it's good. Let me spray my cat. Get out of here, Augie. Continuing on. U-Boat Mystery. The Troubleshooters. Troubleshooters RPG core book. I hadn't even heard of this. This is by Modifius. An action-adventure role-playing game. System, basic role-playing. Basic role-playing. It's not 2D20. Hardcover rules and adventure. $48 for the core rulebook, $29 for the adventure, U-Boat Mystery. Get a PDF included. Troubleshooters is an action-adventure role-playing game of international mystery. RPG is based on European fiction, but it reminds me of the Johnny Quest cartoon. I'm really tempted to get this one. It sounds amazing, and it's backed by BRP. There you go. Set in the mid-60s, in a world with mysterious temples hidden in the jungles, valleys that time forgot, mad scientists, space stations, spies, and super gadgets, and villainous organizations skimming for world control. PCs live adventurous lives all over the world. That's pretty cool. No matter if it's a hunt for a lost adventure or lost treasure, helping someone to get their inheritance, stopping spies from stealing military secrets, or foiling the octopus's evil plans for world domination. PCs go on adventures. Requires 6-sided dice and percentile dice to play. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe keep an eye on that one. Keep an eye on that one. That might be interesting. There's always something to be said. There's always something to be said about the pulpy kind of piece, right? Like Hollow Earth, Doc Savage, you know, Doc Savage and Mystery Island or whatever. Like those are all about adventure, yet I don't know a ton of people that are grokking that kind of genre. You know, commentary for you. Tiny Cthulhu, Alan Barr, Gallant Knight Games. They put out good stuff. Mr. Barr has been cranking stuff out. System relies on Tiny D6. If you're familiar with the Tiny D6 system, I am not, but softcover core rules. $25. Shocker, PCs are investigators, doomed heroes, and classic cosmic horror characters of all types, from scientists and librarians to World War I veterans to mysterious guardians defending the world from the dark powers of chthonic entities. Noir style. Rules include minimalist corruption rules focused on aiding storytelling, enemies, environment traits to aid the otherworldly storytelling, rules for magic and tomes, support for pulp style storytelling. Next one, Legend of the Witchfire NPC and monster cards, and Legend of the Witchfire gridded battle tiles by Privateer Press. Some supplements there. Looks like, yeah. Tolus, last one I think this is. Tolus GM screen. $18. So if you're a Tolus fan and like Game Master screens, then you will appreciate that product. There you go. It looks like a four panel. Yeah, landscape. System neutral, making it equally useful to GMs of 5e, Cypher system, and GMs. So having said that, it's system neutral. It's going to be more about the setting, which obviously makes sense. But, I'll tell you what, the only other, I'm sure it's not the only other, but the only Game Master screen that I know is similar to this would be the one that you can get for Massive Nyarlathotep for Call of Cthulhu. So there's very little mechanics stuff in that Game Master screen. It's literally a list of like NPCs, so you can keep track of them. So it'll say the NPC name and just like a one sentence of who they are. Because in that campaign, it can get a little out of hand because it's big. So anyways, there's some of the things that's dated March 16th, 2022, which is strange because today is only March 12th. What is going on? Oh, I see. Maybe that's the release date. Nope. Interesting. Don't know why the date at the bottom is March 16th. Anyways, there you go. Some other news that's going on, or some products that are being released. Some to check off and keep in mind. Dark Crystal has been held up for years. Interesting. Previous edition of the Mongoose Traveler core book is a disorganized mess, but the game is good. I haven't seen the new edition yet. Oh, interesting. Oh, really? Mark doesn't do a full adventure, huh? Yeah. Good. Victor could run Traveler. Classic Traveler, Victor, or Mongoose? Orcus Dorcas. Good to see you. Orcus Dorcas from Titter Pigs. Check out their podcast. I love Troubleshooters. Took a long time to fulfill, but worth it. So you have a copy. Interesting. Laramie says, yeah, Sean, I got to play Top Secret ran by Merle Rasmussen at Gamehole last year. Yeah. Merle, we love Merle. We see him all the time. Yeah, we could probably get him on the show, but I don't know. Guests and show, I don't think our show shines in the guests segment piece. But if Craig Shipman wants to interview Merle, I could tell you can get him pretty easily, Craig. The original admin, if you played Top Secret. Very nice. He comes to Gamehole all the time. And Gary Con, if he can make it. So he's over in Iowa. He's over in Laramie's neck of the woods. I think he's like neighbors with Laramie, if I'm not mistaken, right, Laramie? You guys share a driveway? So Laramie says, and Glimmering Crypt of the Ioun King ran by Levi Combs was my game of the convention last year. Nice. Yeah. Troubleshooters does sound interesting. I got Tombs. What is it? Tombs and Temples by Christopher Gray, right? That's kind of a Year Zero engine-based game. But I've never played or ran that pulpy stuff. And I mentioned this in a show a long time ago, very briefly, about one of the Gen Cons I went to. I don't even know how I got in the game, honestly. And I don't think I knew a single person at the table. I think the Game Master was sitting outside the conference room and just saying, hey, man, you want to play a game? And I was like, I don't know, sure. I wasn't doing anything. Pulled me in. We had our own room, big, huge round table, like pretty decent size. There must have been 8 players, maybe. It was a pretty big game. And each one of us was kind of set. I thought it was set in like maybe the 30s or 40s. But there was Doc Savage, James Bond. God, who else? A bunch of other kind of pulpy characters. I don't even remember who I played, honestly. Pretty impactful game, I'm guessing. But it was fun. It was good. The thing was I wasn't into pulps, so I didn't get all the cool nuances. Like, I don't read Doc Savage. But frankly, I can't even remember They could have had to do like a Cthulhu theme based thing going on. But anyways. So there you go. Some news. What else we got? Here's some I want to get put out there. Oh, I got more than I even anticipated. Connor Alexander. Anybody know who Connor is? If you guessed having something to do with Coyote and Crow, you win. I don't know if he was one of the authors or what, but they got nominated for a frickin' Nebula Award, as he says. Yeah. Where is this? Nebula Award. Coyote and Crow. Nominated. So Nebula Awards slate includes nominations for 4 tabletop role-playing games. In the game writing category includes Coyote and Crow, Thirsty Sword Lesbians, Wanderhome, and Grandma's Hands. 2 of those I recognize. But that doesn't mean anything. Category is usually filled with video games, although Evil Hat's Fate Accessibility Toolkit made the list in 2019 and Sense and Seismosis appeared in 2020. Winners will be announced on May 21st. So there you go, and then some of the credits. So congratulations to all those folks that have been nominated for RPGs. There you go. Now you know that. What else we got? All right. We're kicking through this. Oops. Let's not look that. I'll put a lot of links to these, hopefully, if I remember, down below. Dragonlance, if you've not been living under a rock, or you stay away from Twitter specifically, which is probably a good thing. Dragonlance playtest materials released for D&D. A lot of hubbub around Kender. So people are like, I saw one tweet that was like, Twitter D&D. Some folks, they messed up Kender. The other half of Twitter, D&D Twitter, what's a Kender? So this has got to coincide with the release of Weiss and Hickman's next novel, right? If you recall, there was a hubbub about a contractual piece that with a lawsuit that was filed between Wizards and Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. It had been resolved, and the book, the deal was like a 3-book series, and so the first one I think is supposed to be coming out this year, if I'm not mistaken. And so now, was it AU Arcana Unearthed Arcana? I don't know. I get them mixed up depending on what the reference is. They're putting out some of the details of classes like the Knights of Salamnia. Yeah, 2 new backgrounds. Knight of Salamnia and the Mage of High Sorcery. Dimension Kender. So are we going to be shocked when Dragonlance is the next campaign setting that 5e puts out and Wizards puts out? Shouldn't be. Release date of the first book, Dragons of Deceit, is set for August 9th, 2022. So there you go. I don't know. I grew up with Dragonlance. I love the series. I don't know if it aged well for me personally. I don't know. I might pick up the new book. I didn't pick up Dragons of Summerflame, which was like, I mean, it's a big book. It's a brick. But maybe I'll pick this up. I don't know. The writing might be better. Could be better. To me, the Dragonlance saga is classic, but I haven't revisited it all in depth. I do have the audiobooks. It's a special place in my heart. And sometimes I'm like, well, maybe it's just worth keeping it there, and not revisiting it. And, who knows? I don't know. We'll see. But that's something to be aware of. Yeah. All right. What else? I don't know. I'll put this out there. You guys might like this. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if I've even. Dungeons and Dragons 10 best online tools for DMs. 10 roll advantage. You can quickly craft a token for it with roll advantage. Upload an image of your choice and it will create a helpful token for you to use in your next online session. So funny, I like to pull these up and some people will be like, ah. So here's the deal. D&D is SEO stuff. Okay. 10 best, another article, 10 best. Oh, I got to check that out. I mean, it suckered me, right? But some of these could be obviously useful for other games, right? So that's why sometimes I like to look at some of these because it's hard to get RPG news in some news streams if you just put in RPG, because then you get video game RPG stuff. The other piece is just using D&D, unfortunately. So here is Roll Advantage. I've used this most recently, actually, with Forbidden Lands and tidying up some tokens, which I have to do for you guys on the Thursday night group. But this is super easy. I love this tool. It's awesome. If you guys haven't used this for virtual tabletops, I highly recommend it. It's very easy. You could choose the background, the ring type. You can even do hex. I thought there was a hex one on here. Maybe not. You could tint the border. Background color if you need it. Text color. And you literally just drop an image on there. And then once you drop the image on there, you can like resize it so you can center the token appropriately. And then you just download it. It's fantastic. So yeah, I like that one a lot. Incarnate. This thing keeps popping up all over the time. I mean, you're welcome, Incarnate. So if you want to make a map, there you go. D&D Beyond, obviously a big D&D tool. If it wasn't on this list, I'd be completely shocked. It's number 8. Concha. I think that's another online tool that allows you to create a vast database information for your players to check out. I think we might have mentioned this last week. Yeah. World building, tabletop RPG, campaign management, storytelling all in one. I have not used this. There is a free version. Something to keep track of. Yeah, it says right here, did the party meet a particularly memorable NPC and have a lovely chat with them? You can craft an entry just for them. You can give your players as much or little access to each entry as you like. It's great for getting your players more engaged in the world building side of D&D. Donjon. I think this was come up in the past as well. Definitely. A lot of those generators brought up last week. Won't spend a lot of time there. Kobold Fight Club. Fight. Kobold Fight Club. Kobold Fight Club. Look at this thing. Oh my goodness. What a fancy looking spreadsheety thing. I think I've heard of this, or I've heard of Fight Club. I think I heard of D&D Fight Club maybe once. Anyways, this is handy when attempting to balance combat within your campaign. You can put the size of your party, what levels they are, give you a rough idea how dangerous you suggest combat might be. Got a wide range of creatures. There you go. Improved initiative. No matter what adventure you're running for your friends, it's incredibly likely that some form of combat is going to break out. Improved initiative. Build an encounter. I've seen this. I have not used it, but I have come across this and kind of put in this or that. kind of an encounter, quick roll initiative. I think it's more for mobile, if I'm not mistaken. And I think you can all have everybody connect to it. Yeah, you can add your players' characters, including their stats. Combined with the fact that the website has the stats for many monsters, make it easy, quick and easy tool for online and in-person games. 5e tools. Ooh, I don't think I've come across this one. A suite of tools for 5th edition D&D and DMs. Use Foundry. You should. You could install the Plutonium module and start using all 5e tools' content in your game. Paste in the mana. Oh, interesting. Support Roll20, Foundry. Oh, interesting. Cool. So I think, what do I don't know, rules. I click on adventure. Oh, and add icky, yucky. Get that out of here. Manage, find an adventure. Oh, I'm not sure even how to use this thing. Anyways, I was hoping I'd just click on something that would come up. DM loot generator. Okay. Yeah, 1, 2, 3 loot gen. Ah, here we go. Roll loot. .9 gold pieces in coinage, 9 silver pieces. Oh, we got a challenge rating. Let's 17 plus. Roll loot. 5,000 gold pieces in coinage. You can barely read that on the screen. 300 gold platinum pieces, 2,000 gold pieces. Interesting. Well, 5e, good resource, I think, if you just kind of tinker around with this one. Number 2, Roll20. Won't go into that. Number 1, Foundry and the Forge. The combination of the two. Forge, hosting, Foundry, software. Made number 1. Nice. Good to see them getting some love. Software is an excellent choice for running everything you need all in one place. You can self-host, allow your friends to join the server online, or you can also use sub-websites as the Forge to host the game online. There you go. There you go. There you go for that. There you go. Some things that might be handy for you. Here's some more news. What do we got here? Classic D&D Gold Box. Coming to Steam. That's right. Forgotten Realms Collections. Eye of the Beholder series. Another for the Pool Radiance and Savage Frontier titles. A third for Dungeon Hack and Menzoberranzan. There's the Kryn Trilogy. Al-Qadim, the Genie's Curse, D&D Stronghold, Kingdom Simulator. Look at that. They're not remasters, so they'll be just as low resolution as you remember. Still, this might be appealing if you want a nostalgic computer RPG experience without the hassles of swapping floppy disks. What's up, Ty? I see you sneaking in there. So there you go. Pool of Radiance. Classic D&D Gold Box games. Can't kill this stuff. You just can't kill it. Anyways. Yeah, man. Dorcas. Regarding Kendra, yes, a giant amount of hubbub, including me, around a race most everyone hated, no one played, and haven't thought of in years. Yeah. For me, original Dragonlance books didn't age all that well for Victor. Oh, man. Jim's used Concha. It's okay. Probably just use Notion at this point, though. Yeah, Notion. Funny, nobody's putting that in some of these lists. What's going on? Laramie says the reason I don't use a lot of tools is they are D&D specific, which doesn't do a lot of good for me. Yeah, that's true. Fair. 5e tools is not legal, to the best of my knowledge. Well, why wouldn't it be legal? As long as it doesn't infringe on IP. I mean, what's a torch? What's gold? What's silver? You know, start putting in some proper knowledge, you might be in a lot of trouble. I think it's a fuzzy area, the gray area. It's probably why they're still there. Yeah, I don't know. Dark Sun games are excellent and for the most part hold up. Laramie, I have nothing against Foundry other than it seems to have more intricate programming knowledge than I have the time to learn currently in life. So yeah, I just stick to Fantasy Grounds. Yeah, no, that's fair, man. Laramie, I'll tell you what. You want me to set up Foundry for you, I will do that. What would be on my list of tools? Robert says Notion would be a big one. Foundry would be one. Forge. Those are no-brainers for me. The token stamper that was just mentioned. That would be one. Let's see. Those would be the top for sure. 1, 2, 3, probably in that order. What else? I think those are the big ones. D&D Beyond, maybe if I'm running 5e. I think that's a no-brainer. D&D Beyond, along with Foundry, are just, it's like fantastic. If I showed Laramie how easy it would be, even though he's not a 5e guy, to bring in Curse of Strahd and have everything there and show him how to game master it, his head would explode. I sincerely believe that. And I wouldn't want Laramie's head to explode, okay? Just for the record. I don't want that to happen. I mean, I kind of do, but not literally. Roger says, I use 5e tools because it's convenient to have all the info in one database and not spread across tons of PDFs and hard copy books. Oh boy, Phil says, don't do it. VTT upkeep keeps one from planning game sessions. Phil, you'd pull up a journal entry in Foundry, type your notes in there, and save it. Easy peasy, man. They'll keep it all in there. What's up, Mr. Jason Hobbs of Hobbs and Friends? Streamed last night his Kalmata, a.k.a. the Olive Campaign, I like to refer to it as. Good to see you, my friend. Michael, good to see you. D&D Beyond plus Foundry is like peanut butter and chocolate. They make each other even better. I approve that message. Ty, what would be the minimalist amount of tools you would want in a VTT? I would say, if I were to answer that, and that's not necessarily a rhetorical question, I would say Owlbear Radio is probably the way to go. I mean, if you really just want to plop stuff down, that's the one, right? Upload a map. I don't know if they have ones that are pre-made, but upload a map, drop it on the screen, share a link with all your players. There's no accounts that need to be made. And then there's tokens that you can just literally drop. And if you're playing a fantasy game, the tokens have symbols on them that kind of represent Fightor, Cleric, or Clerk, Rogue, and you just plop them on there. It's just for positioning. I think there's a Fog of War, and that's all you need. Boom, done. I've said it before. If you don't want to use a VTT, you don't have to. Just, fire up video, audio program of choice and go to town. Have everybody roll at the table, their own personal desk, have their dice there. No problemo. I like my head intact, says Laramie. I like your head intact too, buddy. Robert, been meaning to go back and watch your video on Notion. Yeah, I should probably I could have cut that down a little bit, but it's good, I think, just to give you the flow. The purpose of the video is not to say, here's how you use it. I mean, here's how you need to use Notion for your role-playing game. It's literally to kind of show you, because Notion is such a beast. It's like a virtual tabletop. Like if you don't know how to use it and put, the nuances and create a character and move tokens around or put a map on there, or, where do you get started? That thing is, Notion can be used for tons of things like project management and, intranet resources, and, you could bring in people and limit their access, all kinds of stuff. It's really super awesome. The thing is, because it's so robust for a role-playing game, you're like, well, how do I set this up? Like, do I just use it as a note-taking app like Microsoft Notes? And Microsoft, speaking of which, is coming out with a competitor to Notion called Loop. I think it's scheduled for May-ish. So if you're a Microsoft person, Loop is like, they're just ripping off Notion completely. So there may be some advantages to it. The problem, I will say this, the one drawback to Notion is you just can't use it local. You got to have an internet connection because it's all web-based. And that's kind of a deal breaker for some people. They want to have, they don't have access to the internet. They want to work offline. Then Notion is not going to allow that. So the video kind of give you an understanding of like, okay, how do I link things together and have cards that I can easily reference and maybe my notes. But once you start to understand how Notion works from an RPG perspective from that video, then you could start going, I don't really like it this way. I'm going to do it that way. Or I'm going to put in different fields so that I can reference different things that Sean didn't really put in this video or consider. So it's kind of like just a basic starting point is what I would frame it up as. So let me know, Robert, if you leave a comment if you happen to view it. All right. Feeling good, Lewis. Man, we got a lot in the chat today, boys and girls. Thanks for everybody showing up. And I just realized I have top chat. There we go. Get live chat there. Feeling good, Lewis. Good to see you, man. Boy, just bring them all in. Clark the Clerk. Roger says, I played in a really good Pulp Cthulhu game last night that did not use a VTT. And it was streamed. I don't think you need VTTs for many games, honestly. Like, what would be a VTT for Delta Green? Throw an image on there, maybe? Some people have said, I think Harrigan's one that's like, just need a whiteboard. Just need a whiteboard program, which I think Miro does, Miro.com. Miro, I think, offers whiteboard and a few other things, even sticky notes. That's another thing people haven't brought up on how to, like a tool that you can use for RPGing. Feeling good, Louis says, the funny thing is I started using Notion for my RPGing and now I started using for work. Doesn't usually happen that way, does it? Victor says it's a deal breaker for me for that reason. Understandable. Yeah, this is the thing. Like, we get totally wrapped. Like, this is the best thing ever. It's great. Foundry's the most awesomest. I can't even believe you're not using it. But some people just, it's not going to do what they need it to, or it's too much of a hassle. Totally get it. It's not a problem. I get it. I've used Lucid Charts similar to Miro. Okay, Lucid Charts, another tool you guys could look into. All right, what else? All right, so we got that. Going back to my notes, we got a lot of stuff today. This is one I wanted to bring up. That was interesting. Piracle, the tabletop RPG app that funded in 30 minutes. Okay. All right, fine, sounds good, whatever. Long Dog Games is Piracle. It's an app-driven tabletop RPG that asked for $60,000, got it in 30 minutes. So I might be cautious, the market might be cautious, and while Piracle's subtitle is Gathering Darkness, it's also a glimmer of light in some ways. So at first, when I first read this, I'm like, oh, okay, no big deal, whatever. Somebody got funded on Kickstarter, woohoo. But it's an app-driven RPG, and I'm like, well, what's an app-driven RPG? So In Piracle's case, an app-driven tabletop RPG is a game that combines dice-based combat and a companion app that replaces the Game Master. It replaces the Game Master. We got to unionize now. Our jobs are in jeopardy, ladies and gentlemen of the RPG hobby. The system can cope with 1 to 4 players, and that solo aspect is likely a big draw. Imagine all the problems with Game Masters. Whew. And it's down to an app. Telling you, our days are numbered. We're going to be in a lot of trouble. I'm going to make a t-shirt. Can't replace me with an app. Huh? Isn't that just an MMORPG? Is it? Is it? If that were the case, wouldn't we all be out of a job by now? There's some big MMORPGs out there. Some would say yes, but not if you're talking like this, right? Like if you got an app and you read the app and you like, okay, but I suppose like if you're with a party, I suppose it's a face-to-face game without the video component, but you're just putting in what your decisions are. I don't know. App is called Lore Master, and it narrates the gathering darkness with animations, art, soundtracks, and copes with the branching storylines. Kind of a choose your own adventure. Core game's $99. The campaign, the app, the hero handbook, the Piracle rulebook, 25 double-sided combat maps, dice, 75 hero and enemy standees, magic tokens, hero tokens, pre-gen heroes, combat, and grappling reference sheets. That's just the core rules. Lore Master acts as the Game Master. It spins the tale, immersing players in the world of Piracle with a dynamic soundtrack, cutscenes, and artwork. Some of which we're really terrible at as Game Masters, right? Maybe. Lore Master provides players the opportunity to make impactful decisions that will decide their fate and change the course of the game's narrative for better or for worse. You can access Lore Master on computer or tablet, and the app saves the party's progress for future sessions. Gathering Darkness campaign will have over 200 hours of gameplay. That's 10 weeks, 4-hour sessions, once a week, right? It's my math. All contained in and orchestrated by Lore Master. Whoa, I don't know. Yeah, you take your app. You take your app. You go play D&D without me. Go ahead. Go ahead. Who are you going to throw dice at when your dice go bad? Or I make a wacky ruling? Who? You going to throw it at the app? Huh? I don't know. This, I like. I don't know if I want to kick it. I don't know if I want to kick it. Only because, so let's see if I bring up their site right. I don't know if I would kickstart it necessarily. They're at 175K. They got 26 days to go. They'll break what? Probably 300. They're less than 1,000 backers. But this goes back to like, how is our hobby going to morph and change? And what can we take advantage of that can enrich the RPG experience and still be kind of a pen, paper, and dice game? And there's some of us that are be like, nothing. Pen, paper, dice, that's the true way, the only way. I don't even want to play over video and audio video. I don't want to play online. Just at the table, mappers, dice, pencils, miniatures, maybe, That is the one true way. If you play any other way, that is not the true way. All right. PDFs. Pretty single dimension, right? Some don't even have links in the damn things. You go to the table of contents. Okay. Oh, cool. Click, click, click. Shit. Scroll, 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 scroll. Page, 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 page. Boom. Maybe search. Search. Oh, search for, search for healing. 10 results. Next, 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 next. Like, there is, in my humble opinion, some frustration with being old school, pen, paper, and dice. Like, our generation's kind of the bridge, I think, for some of us Gen Xers. We're that bridge. We were around when the internet wasn't around. And now we were young enough not to be boomers, no offense, boomers, and to kind of grasp it and go look at the value. We brought the internet to fruition. So what tools can we use to just make tabletop RPGs a better experience, faster? Maybe we're looking up rules and you know what? If you want to play like that way, the aesthetics, the feel, all that stuff, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that, is there a way to make it easier, better, or more immersive? Do we need it to be that way? Well, maybe not necessarily. It goes back to like, you don't need a virtual tabletop to play an RPG, which is true. You don't need one. You don't need one. But can it do cool stuff like lighting, positioning, and that lighting having an effect where your token is, including sounds? Yes. Well, why wouldn't I just play a video game then, Sean? Because it's not the same. Even if you put lighting and video or audio in a virtual tabletop and you're still playing an RPG, it's still not a video game, because video games have like very strict boundaries, unless you had a shitty GM or railroady GM. So I don't know. I appreciate their tenacity. Look at this thing. Core game, all this stuff. Their ambition. And, does this, why don't people want a game master? Or why do they get nervous? Why do they get anxious? Why is it that they've played D&D for 5 years and never run a game? And maybe they want to, but they're just not sure if they can pull it off, or, they're afraid of not knowing everything. How does this open up games to other people? With this thing, you could probably play solo. Like, you wouldn't need a game master necessarily, right? That's what the app's for. I don't know. Just reading the chat, folks, as I space. I am not spacing out, just catching up. Jim, but if you want a VTT with map, tokens, dice roll, and character sheets, is it really still minimalist? Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. That's the question, right? Jay says, I'm in telecom PR and our workflow is a track changed Word docs. Yikes. Film. Good to see you. Dice Maiden is my fave Discord dice bot. I have not heard of that one, but good to know. Laramie, replacing me doesn't take a lot of work. Come on, Laramie. I don't want to hear that. I do not want to hear that. Nobody can replace Laramie. You gotta play in a Laramie game. You can't get that out of this type of format by any means. Unless they add emotion to this app. That's not going to happen, right? Your GM job was in jeopardy a long time ago, Sean. Thanks, Hobbs. You know what? Jason Hobbs, for all your supportive needs. No one is going to play the solo game. Wow, really? No? You don't think so? Solo games, I think, are making headway. Pelgrim Press has got Cthulhu Confidential. They also did Night's Black Agent solo ops. There's a lot of people that are exploring some solo games. Even Forbidden Lands, playing Forbidden Lands games solo. Hell, Free League is putting out, Modifius is putting out a book on solo play. I don't know if it's going to be catering. I imagine they're going to plug their own games, but they're publishing a game on how to play solo. Todd Sharp, game masters are a huge problem. Is that what these guys say when they go to Shark Tank? Hi, we're whatever this game, Long Dog Games, and today we're talking to you about Pyrrhical Gathering Darkness, role-playing games. They need game masters. Tabletop role-playing games require game masters. Game masters are a huge problem. We hope to solve that. Sounds kind of like Dark Tower board game. Maybe, sure. And frankly, board games are already doing this, right? Board games have the app that can help set up the board or provide different scenarios for board games. Feeling Good says I use Discord as my whiteboard while we play online. It's better than a whiteboard. I take pics of the things I draw or write and upload them. Everyone can reference them during the session. If you got that down smoothly, you could do it really quick. Tomb of Annihilation ran it in person, and something would come up, and I didn't want to like grab the book and like fold it around and put it in front of the players. And so or maybe it was a handout and I had the digital version. I can't remember. Either way, I would just take a picture of it or save the picture, maybe a screenshot from my phone, and then I would upload it to Facebook Messenger or Facebook community page when I was on Facebook. I'd say, hey, everybody got their phones on? Yeah. Can you just go into Facebook? You'll see the image I just sent you. This is what it looks like. This is what the brick and the runes on the brick look like. Oh, okay. And they have it. That's it. I've given it to the players. They can't lose it. It's in one central location. It's in an app everybody's on. Right? Going to Feeling Good. But it was a very short, easy thing to do, honestly. It didn't take me it takes me shorter to share a handout digitally than it does to figure out why I don't have sound after I streamed for 3 weeks. Next thing you know, they will start replacing podcasters with apps. Thanks, Victor. And on that note, so it is a solo RPG app? No, it's not. 1 to 4. It's 1 to 4 players, right? I don't know. I mean, you could potentially just be a single person, get this stuff and play 4 characters, I would imagine, or 3 characters. Jim, if a GM-less game appeals to a set of players, then I think I'm probably okay with not trying to run a game for that set. Aw. Jim. They already replaced you, buddy. You don't have to make that choice. Probably sounded more snarky than I intended it to be. Jim is the least snarky guy. His text comes across as much. That's funny. Oh man, that's too funny. But yeah, Jim, I mean, it's good to think you might have a say in that. Oh, too funny. Anyways. Orcas Dorcas go to. Because I am the GM, that's why. That's right. Jason, honestly, I run the tables where I would have just as soon dropped the mic and replaced myself with an app. Hey, amen, brother. Right? Ugh. These players. Here, guys, just download this app. I'm out of here. I'm taking off. Does it laugh at the players' jokes and give out inspiration for zingers? Hey-oh. Hey, I think we got this thing going on, right? Like we can promote an ad. That's what these guys are probably missing. I haven't looked at the video that they did for the Kickstarter, but I just see these things like, oh, sure, you can get an app to replace me, but it doesn't do this, and then cuts to like the game master doing something that only a person would be able to pull off and not an app. Oh, I think there's some traction there. I'm not really interested in replacing the game master with an app when I'm a player either. Well, Jim, you just haven't found that game master yet. Jim, you're killing me today, buddy. You might want to. I don't know. Jim's had good luck. Laramie says, issue I have with app-based things, loss of support. The new edition of Descent is app-based, and I'm not a fan. Clunky, and I really enjoy Descent. Sure. Well, we're sounding a little old. We're sounding a little crusty today. Too funny. Ty says, some of the games that I GM are the kind of games I would like to be a player or for too. Michael says, shall we play a game? Do you want thermonuclear war? Because this is how we get thermonuclear war. Whopper. Bring on Whopper. Hello, Professor Falcon. Hello, Joshua. AI GMs are absolutely coming. Harrigan has put his foot down and said it. It's decision-based stuff. Infinite options produced in a second without bias, really. So we gotta rally now when we can. I think that's why Brett's afraid of robots. This very reason. AI GMs. That's probably keeps Brett up at night. Shit. Victor says, that's why I never dug into the latest Descent either, when he's referencing Laramie. Harrigan says, Jim nails it. Consider the popularity of solo games, GM-less games, etc. Feeling good, Lewis. More tech for people to not have to be social. Well, that's another debate. That's down the hallway. I mean, the rise of alternate reality, virtual reality. Yeah, get in our little pods, man, and that's it. Like everything's online, and maybe it's real, and maybe it's not. Maybe we're talking to somebody that's really, and maybe they're not. Maybe it's all AI generated. It's a dystopia. Like, I don't know if any of you exist. You could all just be an AI responding in different people's handles. I know you guys, I know some of you are real, I think. This is for real. Jim says, hot take. Maybe players should try being a fan of the GM sometimes. Jim, I would reach out right now and give you a hug. Just saying. Feeling good, Lewis. Why does tech always have to be toughed as a new thing to replace something else? How about it's another way to do something? Snap or snap. Yeah, compliments, folks. That's what I'm trying to do here. We're not going to get replaced. Seriously. I mean, well, maybe. There's always room for experimenting with new things. I usually give everything at least a try, even if it's not for me. Jason says, color me skeptical of a $100 Kickstarter with 1 million components and an app that will need ongoing development and updates, like even FFG struggles with that. Yeah. It's a tall order, for sure. But I imagine subscriptions just around the corner. Farty! Snuck in here. Good to see you, man. I love solo games. There you go. I still have Vampire. The 1,000-year-old Vampire. I need to dive into that thing. I just haven't found time. I haven't made time. Solo games are pretty hot right now. There you go. Orcus Dorcas. I'm a fan of any tech that exists as long as it continues to promote and assist the human connectivity. The concept of an AI GM removes a key component of that, in my opinion. You could become a player. Play more. Michael, isn't the Mythic Game Master emulator still popular in some circles? That's been out there for over a decade now. I'm not familiar with that. It's Zork. We're going back to Zork. Bring back Zork. Bring back Zork. Jace says, Solo's totally right. Hot. And if you're making a board game, you're smart to offer a 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 player option. Imagine Max Headroom running Dungeons and Dragons, says Michael. Kelly, haven't found that GM yet. Oh, so true. Jim, I've had bad GMs before. My answer was finding a different game, not finding an app. Jim is wise. Victor says, I found that GM I'd rather replace with an app. Oh, it's Jason Hobbs. There you go. Yeah, replace him with an app. Kalmata. They don't need Hobbsy. Todd Sharp is a Russian bot. Fantastic. We should replace players with AI. There you go. That should be the video. In a response by Purical Gathering Darkness, we have created our own game company to replace players with AI. You want to play as a game master or your favorite role-playing game? Do you want to schedule sessions and run any game that you want with any rules that you want? But you're tired of having to deal with players? Well, we've got a Kickstarter for you. I love you players. I'm a player. I'm probably a bad player too. Won't you be a better player? Play better RPGs. Oh, man. That's right. You'd think you'd get song and dance today, guys. If all those AI players would show up to the game night on time, I would consider it. Yeah. AI GM for a VTT full of AI players. The next frontier of actual plays. Oh, I can't come up with this stuff. You guys are fantastic. Jim is on fire. El Fuego today. Orcus Dorcas, I resent that, Sean. I am not an AI. That comment was made a very insert human emotion here. I got to reboot Orcus Dorcas. It's got a glitch. Oh, man. Jason Hobbs says, would watch Jim. Players might actually be decent. I wish I had the same current IPs. Take care, Orcus Dorcas. Thanks for tuning in. Go check out Orcus Dorcas. Yeah, Titterpigs RPG podcast. Farty, player emulator is actually a thing. It's only a small subset of solo. Really? Huh. I feel a new how to RPG video idea coming. God knows I need them. All right, what else we got here? I know. I think that might be... Did I go through all of them for today? Dragonlance, Nebula Awards. Yeah, I think I covered all of them. Yeah. I am fini with all of the updates that I wanted to provide you guys that you may or may not have heard of from the last week. So Roger Zagrave said he wanted my take on one-shots. And I sensed, I don't want to speak for Roger, but I sensed a little, like, this game, I tell you, just not going in a way that it's great or good or whatever. So he was like, I want to get your take on one-shots. So in one-shots can be, what is a one-shot? How do we define a one-shot? Is that a single scenario, start to end? One would say, well, that's Tomb of Annihilation can fit in that. Probably not. That's more of a campaign, I would say. It's very long. Maybe it's Hourglass, Delta Green Hourglass. I don't know how many pages are in that. 90 maybe less. But can you get it done in a single session? Maybe that's what it is. A one shot is something you can get done in a single session. Well, how long is a single session? 4 hours, 8 hours, 1 day? How long is a day? So mileage may vary, obviously, but I think we can all agree on that it is something that is one shorter span, whether it's a one shot. Truly, I would say, if we really wanted to get down to brass tacks, is sitting down, playing a game, adventure scenario, start to finish in one sitting. All right. Many of those types of games are probably more prevalent at gaming conventions. I think we can all agree on that to some point. And Roger clarifies, in this instance, one shot equals a single session game, right? So what are some of the best practices? And I'd be interested to, bring it on. What are your thoughts? Let me know. But before you go too much into taking over the outline for me, I would say the first piece is sometimes I think of like, how would I run a one shot at a gaming convention? Because that's probably the similar setup, even if you weren't at a gaming convention. So I've run BSers through some one shots. They've taken a little bit longer than a single session. I've been a participant in that. So say one of the guys on the Thursday night group is gone and we're going to play, like this is coming up this week. Like, what are we going to play? One of the guys is in Disneyland, Disney World, Kevin, whatever, getting his mouse ears. So we're not going to play without him. So what are we going to play? Phil steps in, runs Merkborg, Ypsilon 14. Start to finish, done. So whether it's that scenario or at a gaming convention, I think they're very, very, very similar. And I'll stipulate why and how. That's what I'm thinking when I'm bringing this information to you. Okay? That's the frame of mind. That's the angle I'm coming from. Hobbs does this too, right? Hobbs does Kalmata. He's like, it's drop in, drop out, but every night I imagine, or every week that he runs it, is its own thing, even though he may have similar players that keep going. Although his is kind of like a living Wes Marches style play where, there's a tombstone somewhere. Somebody died probably 3 sessions ago, and that's where their marker is. A little bit more living than that. But nonetheless, still maybe a one shot is how he approaches it. It might be a little different. I don't know. Railroad is a one shot. Okay, so having said that, come on, we need to understand what a railroad is. Okay? Because I think it gets kind of chucked around and misconstrued. Because railroading is bad, but linear adventures are not. Okay? So, how would I do this? Best practices is pretty standard up front, is you're going to have an introduction to the game. Whether you do this outside of the game ahead of time, whether it's at a con and you like, hey, here's some player character pre-gens, pick a few so that when we sit down virtually or in person, we could just skip that step. Hey, this is the tone of the game. Here's the description of the game. Well, if we have that listed in a convention event description, or if we do it at the table, whatever. But there's got to be a premise and a setup. if you there's so many unknowns in a one shot. Okay, I'm assuming there's a lot of unknowns. Maybe there isn't with your particular situation, but there are unknowns. You don't know if the players have played the game, that game specifically. You don't know if they've played a role-playing game necessarily in some situations. You don't know how deep their knowledge is with that particular one game or any role-playing game for that matter. Like, there is a difference between somebody like us that have been playing for a little while and somebody who's like, I don't know what a D4 is. What's a D8? Like, what die do I roll? Completely different ball game. But there's got to be an introduction of some kind, right? So, hey, I mean, I would start off with saying, first of all, we're going to play Merkborg. No, because I don't know Merkborg. We're going to play Delta Green. Here's Delta Green. So you can go through cats very quickly. You could do like a session 0 very compactly, but if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you kind of got to get this down, almost like public speaking. You got to kind of nail this thing so you're not going into an hour diatribe when you're only running a 4-hour game. All right. So cats, whatever method it is, like, hey, we're going to play Delta Green. How many of you have played Delta Green before? No? Yes? Okay. Now you get an understanding of the table and the rules and the people's knowledge. Fantastic. That is going to inform you on a lot of the rest of the details of the game. That person you're going to have to spend more time with. That person's a rules person. They could help out with rules clarifications if something comes up and we can move on and make things go. So having said that, once you pitch it and you understand it, like, okay, by the way, this is the rules mechanics. Here's all the character sheets. If you've seen them ahead of time, great. If you haven't, here's what they are. Have a brief look over them. I'll give you a couple minutes. Have them absorb it. Some will look at the character sheet. If they've got experience in a similar game, they probably can understand or what the character is, who they're going to be playing, what their strengths and weaknesses are by a lot of the stats, even if they don't know what the skill numbers mean. So they look at the skills, 90, 40, 50. So they're going to say, well, is high better or lower better? So then you start, okay, everybody clear with kind of who you're playing and what you're going to play. Hacker person, archetypes come into play very easily. You can, if you've created the pre-gens in a particular way and it's a class or classless system, people are going to kind of understand what fighter does. Maybe if they've got familiar with video games or RPGs, they're going to know that stuff. So say, for example, okay, Delta Green, computer science major, right? Education, computer science, member of FBI, computer forensics. Okay, this is probably the computer nerd. I'm going to play this computer nerd. So some of the mechanics don't even have to be understood by just picking the character, right? Because it's a one shot. All right, then you get into the mechanics, like a very, very brief overview, because some of these games can be really tricky. Like Blades in the Dark one-shots, right? Like, oh, it gets, it can get a little in the weeds and may need further elaboration, further explaining, but say Delta Green experience. Skill-based system percentiles, mostly what you're going to run. If it's high enough, I'll ask you, you might not need to roll. If it's not, then I may have you roll, depending on what the situation is. You have to roll under your skill. And if you roll doubles, please let me know. That's a big deal. If you roll under, then you succeed. If you roll over your skill, you fail. If you roll doubles and it's over your skill, it's a critical failure. If it's doubles and it's under, it's a critical success. Okay? Just something, just tell me what they're, sometimes they'll forget. All right, what'd you get? 33. Okay, critical success. Oh, yeah, that's a critical success. Okay. So you got to kind of tee up the game to some degree. Got to give them an overview, understand. In Delta Green, you're going to play some agents that... Has anybody seen X-Files? Yes. It's kind of like X-Files. There's an alien conspiracy. The Cthulhu conspiracy exists. And as agents, you know that it exists. And your job is to protect humanity at all costs from itself. You need to keep those things at bay, blah, 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 blah. Clear? And I mean at all costs. Okay? Like, these people can do bad things, because the getting rid of the one saves the good of the many, right? Everybody clear? Yes, fine, great. Let's make that happen. Then you get into the weeds of the scenario that you're going to be prepping or have prepped already as a game master or dungeon master. What is that scenario, and how many hours do you have to present that scenario to the players? So you gotta not think too grandiose. They're not going to really care about the bigger world or the bigger campaign. Like, here, let me tell you about the freaking 10 years of Greyhawk. It's not going to be relevant. It doesn't matter. You got to get past that stuff. Most of us know this. Some of us may still slide into old tropes and old habits. Many times these situations and these types of games do help that if there's some type of linear component to it. Doesn't have to be. But you have to kind of think, like, what can I get away with in a 3, 4, 5, 6 hour go? What's going to take up the most time? Combat takes up a lot of time sometimes. It depends on the knowledge of the players. Maybe it's a planning session. If it's a heist game and the party needs the plan, they're going to eat up an hour. It's just probably will happen unless you have things that you put in front of them that brings that down to a smaller amount of time. What are those things? Most of them are options and choices. If you limit the options and choices and you provide those to the players, you are giving them you're kind of serving them up on a platter for them to choose. It's an hors d'oeuvre tray. You put 3 different hors d'oeuvres on there. They're not going to wonder where the other 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th hors d'oeuvre is. They're going to have their 3 choices. They may not like all 3 choices, but that's the things they have to choose from. And it's important to provide some choices and options to players so it's not a railroad necessarily. It can still be linear and it can still be in a particular direction. You also have to understand that if they choose any of those 3 options, you're able to go and understand and kind of kick things off no matter what their choice is, knowing that those other options or the options they didn't choose may come into play later. Like, you could just move them around. So think of it as like a mind map where you got these circles and these lines connect to each other, and some lines connect to one circle multiple times, or more than 2 circles connect to another one. However you need to organize it in your brain, on your paper, in your virtual tabletop, in your notes, whatever that looks like. So you could even do it in your brain, or you have to improv because the players took a turn you didn't expect. We're game masters. We can handle it. Take a few minutes, go to the bathroom, think about what they're going to do, come back with some different options, put them into play, and you'll be fine. So, having said that, most of the time, if their players are good, right, and they're not antagonists, from a player perspective, they'll roll with it, they'll get into it, and they'll go with it. It's even maybe easier to kick off a game without even choices. Like, you are traveling through the woods because this is what you are. You're a ranger of the Midden Vale. What are you as players in the intro? What will you be doing? What's your purpose? Well, you're a ranger of the Midden Vale. Your purpose is to patrol the lands far and wide for, intruders, monsters, aberrations, otherworldly creatures, and protect the Midden Vale from all those hazardous, dangerous things. And if there is something that's going on, you need to go and investigate it because it may be one of those things, whatever it is. And therefore, you may not even start with any choices or give the players any options. It may just be you find yourself in the middle of the wilderness. You are tasked with this from whatever person, their patron or whoever that may be. So sometimes mission-based one-shots helps pull things off. A lot of one-shots are really kind of like what I would consider mission-based, where you are sent to do something on behalf of a patron of some kind, whether it's Duke, Duchess, whatever. Maybe it's the community. You're put into a role to do a specific thing. You are to whatever. And in the game, depending on when you want to position that, it could be up front or it could be as through play. You may want to give those players some options or just spell the thing out. Here's the deal. You're going to meet with the king or queen. Both. They need somebody to travel to the woods that nobody goes to, and they need you to meet with the druid, that's the ancient druid that is all wise, and find out what is the source of the disease that's coming from the community next door. And we believe that the druid's been around for so long that they have the answer to some of these details. So go there, find the information, and return back to us with that info. What do we do, players? Sounds like we go off into the woods and find this druid. What kind of questions do they have? As they come up with questions like, well, do we know where this druid is? How far travel? Do we have gear? What gear do we have? Like, expect all those things to come out, and whether you have them written down or not, just give the players what they need to do what they need to do. The adventure starts. Then you're going to probably have some problems that you want to throw in front of them. Now, somebody will say, okay, well, I'm going to provide like a social encounter. I'm going to provide probably 2 combat encounters. And that should probably take the 3 to 4 hours. And then they'll get to the druid, and then they'll come back, and then there'll be a big battle, and then it should be wrapped up. Okay, so this is how you're kind of seeing things in your brain. Some of you are like, yes, Sean, yeah. I know all this stuff. Come on. Get to the point. But it's nonetheless, some folks, and they could tackle things in a different way. It doesn't make it the wrong way. It doesn't make a worse way. But it's just some of the things that kind of go through my brain when I'm doing a one-shot. Because there are some things that people will do, and it's exactly what I just said, but something still is missing. Something's not working. For example, it's been 2 hours. You're talking to 2 of the players, and one of the other players hasn't been brought into what's going on for the last 2 hours of the game. Sitting there, wondering when they get the spotlight, blah, 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 whatever. So you got to understand sharing the spotlight and moving that around and somehow getting that other person involved. I just had this happen. I mentioned this in Forbidden Lands. Like Phil and I think it was Kevin. Phil and Kevin's characters were sitting in the bushes while Harrigan and Wayne went and talked to the NPCs. Well, how long is that conversation with the NPCs going to take and those 2 players sit in the bushes? And somebody would say, well, that's their choice. If they don't want to be in the action, why aren't they going up there and talking to people? They're just going to be sitting in the bushes. That's no way to play. No, they're keeping watch. What do? It's not, you don't have anything written down. You didn't expect them to sit in the bushes. How do you pull those guys back into the story or get something to kind of get them to interact with something? One thing I put in was a dead body that they came across. Stinks, bad, can't stand it. They got to move, propelling them to move or look into what the dead body's about. Does that unravel any clues? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it gives them a red herring, whatever the case is. Maybe it's a patrol that's coming in, and yes, now they freaking have to deal with this. Like there's somebody coming down the path, and it looks like they're heading towards the NPC party that your 2 other party mates are talking, and they look like they're starting to sneak around in the bushes to get, an advantage. Maybe they're going to attack them. What do you do? Right? Well, we got to do something now. Get them into the mix, into the fray. But you got to keep some of these things kind of intact. You can't come up with going to the grandiose, I'm going to dialogue, what Greyhawk is for the last 10 years. You also have to keep some of these encounters relatively small and brief. Like you got to have 2 to 3, 3 to 4, maybe. Have one in your pocket just in case. And if it gets to be too long, you got to be able to pull those out and say, okay, cut scene. You travel through the woods. You end up at the druid's, the grove. And this is what's happening there. Whether anything's happening, how they get summon the druid comes, whatever the case is, but you have to be able to cut some of that out based on time. So you kind of have to kind of work with blocks when you're doing some of these one-shots. And pacing is a big deal because some people, I mean, pacing, I missed on Savage Worlds when I ran Forget About It. I've run that scenario like 3 or 4 times. Had to rush the last 10 minutes, not even close to the end of the scenario. And I'm like, oh, I should have started this like 30, 45 minutes ago, because now we're going to be rushed. So you're trying to prevent that from happening. So pacing's a big deal, and you got to understand where everybody is and where kind of the things need to be or go. Also, with so having said that, let's see, I was looking at my notes. How you start it is, yeah, good game, terrible layout, Wayne says. It all depends on what you're what the party is supposed to do. So, for example, if you do a heist game, man, you got to lay out a lot of details. And maybe you have a contact that's going to give you everything that the party needs to pull this off, knowing that things are probably going to go awry. Let the party come up with some decisions necessarily based on what you're giving them, but understand that they're going to tackle things that you might not expect. So when you're like doing a shadow run piece or something along those things, you got to tell them, like, here's what, it's like a mission for like espionage or action. Like, what intelligence and information do the players need to know to make some intelligent decisions in order for you to pull off this scenario and give them what they need, and not also spend 2 hours coming up with a plot. So I call it a ready-made component, whatever. All right. So lay out the objectives, be very clear so the players understand what's going on, especially in a one-shot. Like, okay, what are we supposed to do? This is what we're supposed to do. Got it. Because it's amazing if you give them a couple components, somebody in the party's going to forget. They'll go to that first encounter and be like, shit, now what are we supposed to do? We got to go over here. We got to get this. Okay. So pacing, I mentioned that. Spread the love, spotlight. Those are big things, and they're not, how do I do that? How do I make sure everybody gets enough spotlight? You got to be conscious and aware. Some game masters, they lose that, and there's not much you can do. As a player, you may be able to help, right? By injecting something, coming up with an idea. Sometimes game masters might not care for that too much, as you say, well, I'm going to do this, or hey, wouldn't this happen? Even if you're not in the scene, most of us are pretty kind and want to be courteous. And so hey, I'm not in the scene. I'm just going to sit here idly by. I don't think it's, I've been subjected to this too, is like, okay, well, it's been an hour. Maybe I should say something like, hey, I'm going to go and do this. It even might be like, as they're doing that, my character's going to do this, or what is happening to my character. I don't think it's too much to put in a little subtle, like, hey, hi, remember me over here in the woods behind the bushes? You guys have been talking to them NPCs for like an hour now, and I'm just wondering do I notice anything going on? Right? Lots of stuff in chat. Let me catch up. Wayne Peacock, bad player emulator. Going back to that. List some options there. Nice. One shot. Feeling Good Lewis says one shot is where the characters don't level up or don't improve stats. Yeah. Okay. Railroad. Ty Prunty says one shot pre-gens. Gotta have pre-gens. I didn't mention that, but pre-gens should be a no-brainer. Recently took place in Kyle's Feng Shui game. Probably would have been more succinct if he had pre-gens specific to the situations that were going to come up. So the nice thing was like, hey, here's a list of all the archetypes, because in Feng Shui, you just pick an archetype, put in the name, and that's what you go with. So there isn't really a character gen process, even if you played a long-term game. There is, but typically there's so many archetypes that you could just pick one, and put your name on it. And usually there's not too many players wanting to play the same one necessarily, because there's so many. But if you're going to run an investigation game, then you'll probably want some players that are mildly or competent in investigating, or they're gonna be good for tackling the problem you're gonna put in front of them. It may be cool to put some cool pre-gens in front of the players that you think are cool, but if the skills and abilities and shticks and things of that nature don't relate to some of the core components of the scenario, you're going to have a hard time. I played a private investigator out of New York that's, we were kind of brought down to Macau to steal something from a, kind of a Yakuza up-and-coming mob boss's son, right? Has all the details on a disc we're going to steal, something of that nature. A lot of the shticks I had to do with interacting with NPCs ahead of time, right? Because I'm investigating. I'm going to call them into the, interrogation room, or I'm going to see them on the street and, hey, what's going on? I know who you are, and blah, blah, blah. What do you, give them the kind of the lowdown, the once over, knowing that I would probably meet them in another scene. And then when I do, because I've talked to them, my shtick kicks in and I get a bonus for attacking them. But if I don't have the opportunity to talk to them, now when somebody would say, well, Sean, how come you didn't take the opportunity to talk to them? Well, yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I mean, I could have said, well, I'm going to go and talk to these. I'm going to go and, I don't know, do a traffic stop and tell them I'm on their tail. Like, I want them to know that I'm bringing them down. And that could set something up. So sometimes you need to just make it more obvious, a lot easier, without any obstacles put in front of them. If you're doing Shadowrun, you want a hacker person, a rigger. Maybe they want to futz with the computers and the security system, fly around a drone. You want a big heavy that's going to take a lot of the, just be a beefy fighter type and take some damage and do a lot of damage. Then you might want the sneaky person or the face person, because they'll be able to negotiate things and things of that nature, and have some of those scenarios set up so that each player can have their own kind of like, yay, this is my strength, allow me, and hope that they pull it off. And if they don't, then you're going to have to come up with something more creative, or the party is, to kind of overcome some of those obstacles. So anyways, going back to the chat. Victor says, throws out some of the more complex rules unless those are absolutely necessary for the game's flavor. We use just what makes the game function properly and still feel like the game you are running. That's a good point. Jason Hobbs, that isn't the definition of a one-shot, just something I would use one in a one-shot. You're splitting hairs. Perhaps. We tend to do that sometimes. A railroad game is different than a railroad game. I think I posted in Hobbs' Discord. Somebody said, unless you're playing Ticket to Ride. I go, Ticket to Ride, the RPG, where railroading is the game. Jim says, I kind of want to play a game that takes place on a train now. You guys are a lot of help. Feeling good, Lewis. A one-shot has an end. Whether it's time, number of sessions, or mission objectives, and everyone knows the game ends on those conditions. Victor wants to play with Jim on the railroad. All right, Laramie. Talk to you later. If you're still here, have a good day, buddy. Wayne, second gauntlet thrown. One shot involving a flump on a train. This is not what I was looking for, guys. Come on. But it will be all social interactions. Throw Mama Flumph from the train. Where are my sound effects? Lucas, how you doing? Glad you could join us. We're just talking about one-shots and how to kind of best practices. You know, best practices, I think, to kind of sum it up, have a scenario that the players are going to take place in, right? But 2 or 3 situations. And I mentioned, I kind of touched on it, like, here's an, combat encounter, here's a social encounter. Just make them encounters. And they could be, all intents and purposes, I think a combat encounter in my eyes is like, I know this NPC is going to attack them regardless of what the players do. That's a combat encounter. Like, this is going to happen. They're going to ambush them because there's bandits. That's what bandits do. They're not going to negotiate, and they're just going to kill them. Combat encounter. I like to take it as there's bandits on the road. It's an encounter. Whether the players want to turn it into a combat encounter, that's up to them. But there's players that'll be like, hey, we just want to negotiate. Hey, like, okay, you got us outnumbered. No problem. Just don't kill us. You take our stuff. Here's my wallet. Here you go. Can we go on our way? Sounds good. They don't want to kill you after all that. You talk them off the ledge. I don't know. Have the pre-gens. Have pre-gens that are going to be good for the scenario. They're going to have some key skills, abilities that'll help them overcome some of the objectives that you think they're going to encounter or you're going to provide to them. Make sure you sort around the spotlight. Shine the spotlight around onto the players. Don't be afraid to move things around. So if you think it's kind of going to go like this, don't try to put that into concrete. Be flexible enough that if the players decide that they're really wanting to go around it, that they do. But if that says, well, if they do, then they don't get the clue, then just move the clue, right? Quantum Ogre isn't always necessarily a bad thing, especially in a one-shot. And if they need to get the clue, don't make them roll. That's another thing. Don't make them roll in a one-shot if it's going to bring your one-shot to a screeching halt. So if they need something, an item, the MacGuffin, whatever that is in the scenario, don't prevent them from getting it based on a die roll. But Sean, what if they roll really badly in the woods and, well, they're supposed to get through the woods and, but even though the clue's not in the woods, it's like, they go through the woods and so they rolled the dice and then they didn't get through the woods. Man, come on. Put the damn thing in the woods then. But make it clear to the players on what they need to kind of do or what's going to happen. Honestly, some of the easier one-shots is like Rangers of the Middenvale. You patrol the lands. You're out patrolling the land. As you do, you come across X or Y. Sounds good. Harrigan was like, you come across the ruins or there's a hole in the ground with some doors. We should probably go and check that out, see what's going on. It just happens to be here. Who knows? It's just something we know, not anything we've got mapped. But we need to know these lands on the back of our hand. Great, we should go and check it out and see what's going on down there. Go on down there. Maybe it's a 4-room dungeon. Who knows? There's water. Do we go through the water? Is there a path around it? Yes, there is. And that's the scenario. And then maybe at the end, they all get killed. Who knows? Or they make it out alive and they have the knowledge of that dungeon and they've killed a couple monsters and they get their money. And it could be just as simple as that. So it's as they kind of go along, things are provided in front of them. It's not necessarily quote unquote mission based with a bunch of objectives. It's a general purpose overview. Like your general purpose is to just kind of secure the lands. And with that comes wandering around, going from town to town, bringing news, right? Maybe it's bringing, delivering mail messages from the town over, whatever the case is. Maybe it's, you're going over to the town because there's a disease that's been put into place and you have to meet the town elder outside of the town so that they can give you the lowdown on what's going on. Great. Let's go there. They have something pop up on their travel. They meet with the elder. They give more news or more updates, and then they can kind of pivot based on some of the different, more updated information that they have. Well, the king thought it was the druid talking to the town elder. Town elder says it's this. What do we do? Let the players decide, but if you need to, you might have to throw them a bone. Yeah. Second gauntlet thrown. One shot involving a flump on a train. We already went over that. Thanks. Oh, see you later, Harrigan. Thanks for stopping by if you're still around. Waiting until Harrigan leaves to talk about Rangers in Middenvale is so great. Game terrible layout. Anyways, see you, Jim. Have a good weekend. Was it something I said? Everybody's leaving. Dorigo, see ya. Prepper for the family FBL game. Yeah, good times. So, I don't know what your thoughts are. One-shots they're not difficult. They have to be small. I think we tend to get into the grandiose of things. Hey, we're going to play Dragonlance. It's Kryn. What? You're not going to talk about Draconians, the War of the Lance, the Heroes of the Lance. Like, okay, if I'm familiar with Dragonlance, great. I get to experience some of that, put some Dragonlance-y stuff in there, come across what a Draconian is. Dragons are, prominent or prevalent in the setting. Make it Dragonlance-y, but you can do that through the play, right? If they run into a wizard and it's, a wizard in a white robe, a red robe, or a black robe, you could tell that through play. Like, you guys are characters of Kryn. You know that there's the red and black white robe wizards, each representing good, neutral, and evil, blah, blah, blah. This one is wearing the black robes. Ooh, you can get that feel through that play. You don't have to regurgitate, 50 books of Dragonlance to convey what it is to adventure in a Dragonlance or Kryn or Absalon, the setting. Jason, whatever. Are you leaving too? Or are you just giving me grief? But best practices. I mean, how do you start? It could be in media res or in media res if you'd like. You guys are playing this. You still got to tee it up. You still got to tell the players who they're playing, what they're about, what they're adventuring, who they're, what kind of the thing that they're going to do in the scenario. And maybe you start out like, okay, you're in a bar and you just got done making the deal with the Mr. or Mrs. Johnson. And then all of a sudden, this happens. Roll for initiative. So while some people will say, if you run a one-shot, it's great to get right to the action. I don't think that's wrong necessarily. However, you still got to tee up the scenario and who I'm playing, what I'm doing. It could be where you start the scenario in the cave, at the druid's location. So maybe you just narrate the meeting with the king and queen, get them to the druid, and the druid conveys more information. Or it starts out in combat, right? They're in the middle of the woods. You just, roll for initiative. You've just been attacked. There's something wandering around in the woods and it attacks you. And it looks like a huge giant black sloth that moves very quickly. Or it's up in a tree in this case. I'm going to shake the tree and get it down, or I don't know, call it down and throw stuff at it or whatever. Roll for initiative. Combat's done. Now what? Okay, now we get on with what's going on. Thanks, Lewis. I'm glad you're still here. So I don't know. It's not really rocket science necessarily, and I think it's just a reminder for some people that don't run one-shots often. I would also say best practice is run a one-shot and run the same one-shot over and over. Not for the same players, but if you're going to con games, I'm telling you, it's really beneficial. Like Brett, he probably runs the same scenario at conventions for the last 5 years. Not always, right? Depending on the game and if he has run it for a while, like the World of Darkness game that we played, Wraith. He probably ran that in the past. Might have been a while, but like Iron Shoes or whatever, like he's probably run that thing 4 or 5 times, and it probably changes a little bit every time he runs it, but it's the same scenario, and he knows what some of the pitfalls are going to be. He knows the type. He's already got the pre-gens done. The next time he runs it again, he already knows the spiel. He knows how long it's going to take to give the intro and this is what Avalon is, just to give you a brief overview, kind of, blah, blah, blah. Okay, sounds good. Let's get going. And then kicks it off. So I would even say that that's even more important, is if you're going to run a one-shot, run it more than once, and you'll get better every time you do. Hopefully. I didn't, but shocker. Savage Rifter. Hey, welcome. Thanks for chiming in, and welcome to the stream. Always start at one shot in media ray. It really kicks things off and gets everyone past the awkward getting to know one another moment. Absolutely. I mean, some people swear by it. Like, this is the way you gotta do it. And it is. It's a great way to do it. Just get them in the action, whatever the action is. And even in movies, right? You could even start like a James Bond, right? James Bond movies always start with something's going on. He's in the middle of the mission, but it has maybe little to do with the main plot that's going to come up in the movie, or it will, but it's down the road. But he's already, For Your Eyes Only were awesome. Like skiing down, and I think it was the ski scene at the beginning of the movie. There are some good examples out of James Bond films where people can start in the middle. So in other words, if you're playing a crew that's like in a Shadowrun game or even an adventure game where they're a band of brothers, sisters, what have you, and the core of the game is going to be them doing this over here, but you kick off the game with almost like what is it? The prologue, I guess, to some degree, or a scene that has nothing to do with eventually what's going to come about. It may be also an option. The only thing you got to be careful of is the players may feel disjointed if you do that kind of intro piece. But like Sneakers, I don't know if you guys watched the movie Sneakers with Robert Redford and Sidney Poitier, I think, is in that as well. It's they play a group, kind of a gang, kind of not an Ocean's 11, but, similar to that, where they, there's a hacker involved and a couple others. They're like, I think Sidney Poitier is an old former CIA agent, blah, 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 right? In the beginning, they cut to them. They're doing something. It's part of a thing that they're a job that they're doing, and it's wrapping up, and it's before the movie takes place, or the plots of the movie come to fruition, right? But it gets them into the action, and you wrap up something. It's like, I don't know how to frame. I'm not framing that up really well, but I think you guys get the idea. If you ever watch Sneakers, it's a good one. I think it does that in that movie. Matrix, the original. You don't even know what's going on. Trinity's in a building. Cops are coming in. They're raiding it. She's got her hands behind her, behind her head, facing the wall. Cops come in. It's dark. Flashlights. There's obviously no power at all in the entire building because there's no lights. And they go to arrest her, and she kicks their ass and runs up walls. Spoilers. And that's it. That's the intro to the scenario. And then it moves to Thomas Anderson, right? Whoa. I mean, it's great for a movie, great for an RPG. You could do something along those lines, which is a great idea. In media res for one-shots is fantastic. How you would do it in like maybe Call of Cthulhu, you're not sure. So some games lend themselves to, like, especially the higher action games, Savage Worlds games. And I don't want to say Savage Worlds games because it's like it's got to be the type of game that you're trying to pull off. So it may not be revolving around a particular system, but if you are wanting to provide action in a game, just put them in the action right away, whether it is something to do with the plot or not. Maybe it's, hey, here's the deal. We cut and this is where you guys are at. Like, talk about a job being set up and the plan is, okay, here's the layout of the building. You're here, you're here, you're here. You're in the van monitoring things. And the whole point is to circumvent the security. This is what you're going to do. Let's make it happen. It's almost like having a heist go wrong and just do it right at the beginning, without intentions to kill the characters, because that'll kill your one shot really quick. So maybe it's just get them into action, rolling initiative, having them cool stuff. They fail at the job or they succeed in the job regardless, and then the adventure pivots based on the intro. So did they get away with that one job and get that file and they delivered it to the Mr. and Mrs. Johnson? Great. Next thing is the bad guys find out it's them, and then they start hunting them down or whatever the case is, and they're supposed to survive. Or Mr. or Mrs. Johnson shows up dead or whatever the case is, and then that adventure goes in that direction. But give them some choices. Don't make it a railroad. If you need to move things around, be able to do that. Be able to make sure, like, if you're pressed for time, take chunks out. Savage Worlds, forget about it. If they're going down the road and they're like, ooh, we got 30 minutes left, and I wanted to introduce the motorcycle gang, and I wanted to introduce like trouble with their car and just see what would happen. And then maybe a bus comes by with a bunch of hippies because it takes place in 1967. I got to remove those. They're not going to encounter them. Oh, well, let's get to the end. All right, you get to the construction zone where you're going to put this guy from the trunk into the ground. When you arrive, this is what happens. They have a half hour, and you have a half hour to wrap it all up. So pacing's a big one. Being able to move components out of the one shot that you don't need in order to get to, the action, the end, and wrap it up in a nice package really helps. And sometimes we don't succeed in doing that, and sometimes we've got it down as a science. If you do run out of time, being able to come up with a creative way to wrap it up is always helpful. Sometimes the players can help with that as well. So if you're a player in a one shot, the player's got to kind of roll with it, come up with maybe some creative ways to tie up the loose ends. If it doesn't get to the end where you're like, okay, this is really nice and it was super awesome, too bad we ran out of time. Did I miss anything? What would you say are best practices? Pre-gens, few encounters, being able to move them in and out, and put them into place as needed. Got to give them a few choices, but limit them. Like, give them 2 choices. Sometimes with more choices, it's analysis paralysis. So it's not even managing the choices or the options that the characters choose to take. It's just deciding on which one to do. So if you put 5 or 6 or 7, well, you're going to, and you got 5 players, each one's going to probably pick a different option. You don't want that to happen. So limit their things. Building a 10-minute break, that's good. Breaks are always important too, for sure. Yeah. I would have wished in some one-shots it would have been great if the game master would have been like, hey, let's take a 10-minute break. And you got to know when that is. Sometimes the player will be like, I just got to go. And then it's at a bad time because you got this all teed up and they're like, I got to go to the bathroom. So make sure if there's a point in time that you're going to pivot in the scenario, prevent new material, or they've made a decision, you're like, okay, that's great. Fantastic. Let me think about that. We should probably take a break anyway. Let's do that right now. If you're doing like a 4-hour con game, an hour and a half in every hour isn't probably bad. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Roger. Let the players know it's coming. Yeah. Even tee it up at the beginning. Like a well-oiled one-shot, the Game Master has done that over and over a few times. Like, all right, here's the deal. This is what the player, you got the pre-gens. Pay specific attention to, the hindrances or the history or the notes. Kind of gives you a nice kind of angle to play your character. Okay, I'm playing the rocker, in Tales of the Loop, from the Loop, kind of the outcast kid. Okay, got it. Sure, divorced parents, angsty, got it. 10-4. Yep. And then we're going to take a break every hour. If I am losing track of time, just somebody raise their hand and say, hey, it's top of the hour. We're going to take a break anytime soon. So just remind me. All right, you find yourselves in this situation, and then go. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? But get in the habit of providing them problems and then having the players come up with a solution. And don't be afraid to wing it with the solution. So if it doesn't fit nicely into your little box that you've constructed, just go with it. The players will not know that you're just winging it unless you're like stumbling all over the place. So just take some time to think. You'd be surprised. And take a break. Like, I know we just had a bathroom break. I knew we would say it only every hour, but I just need something. I just need to contemplate what you guys are doing so I can come up with something quick. The players will understand. Give you time to think about it. And then you can come back with something even, you could even jot them down in notes at the table. Maybe you need to go take a break yourself. Come back. Okay, I think I got it. I've gone to tables. I've literally got up as a game master and said, hold on a second, I'll be right back. I've gone to another table who's running the same event, given them the lowdown and said, look, I don't know what to do here. This is kind of the situation. And the game master's like, this is what I would do. And it's literally that kind of quick conversation, like not overly elaborate. This is what I do. I'd inject the bad guy now, make this happen. And then after they're done with that, then I would make this happen. If you can swing that, you'd be like, oh, got it. Okay, makes sense. Go back, done. And that's not bad. So, player cheat sheets. Yes, thanks, Lucas. As soon as I saw cheat sheets, I'm like, yes, player cheat sheets, quick reference sheets, like super awesome. That's a good. That's very awesome. Very, very helpful. Yeah. And I should add, the Alexandrian.net has some awesome cheat sheets and reference sheets for some major games out there that, Star Wars FFG, the dice system's funky. What actions can you take? Those things are all super awesome, helpful to put in front of players. If you can even dumb down the character sheets if you need to, like roll this, give the player options fairly limited. Like, don't give them a list of all this crazy stuff. Like in Feng Shui, you've got maybe 3 shticks, 4 shticks. That's enough. You don't need to give them 20 because then they're going to be like, okay, what do you do? And they're going to look at their character sheet and have to read every single one. Magic users, spells can be kind of tough. Like, what does the spell do? They got to read what all that spell stuff. So sometimes with spellcasters in a fantasy setting, they're going to be kind of the wild card because you're going to get somebody in there who can really jam on it. They already know it. They know what the spells do. They know how to reference the spells. They know when it's not their turn. They're looking up their spell and referencing them and combing them over because when it's their turn, they want to go. But if you get somebody that doesn't understand the dynamics of a spellcaster in a particularly fantasy role-playing game and they're relatively new, probably not the best class to give them necessarily. And don't be afraid as a game master to go, hey, here's the deal. We're going to try to get through this in 3 hours. You're newer to the game. I respect that. You want to play a wizard. I get that. But here's the deal. We got to kind of move this along. I can't afford to have you get bogged down with reading the spells when it's your turn. You have to have it up and kind of ready. If as a game master, you can spell it out on the sheet, the very succinct boom, 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 roll this for this spell. tell the game master what the outcome is, then great. Anything you can expedite that and make sure it doesn't get bogged down in quagmire. So there's a lot of these really subtle nuances that come into play when dealing with one-shots, and it all depends on the type of game you're playing. You know, that spellcaster piece isn't going to come into play necessarily if you're running a Delta Green game. Maybe, maybe not. But yeah, that's a good point, Lucas. Roger says, I would also say forgo any thoughts of deeply exploring the characters unless that is the point of the game. Right. Fair. What is my motivation? You know, I like that reference conversation with a GM if you are stuck, Sean. Good, Victor. Yeah. So that example was when I was running Call of Cthulhu, Great Gatsby. And Corey puts it together, but it is a production typically. I mean, you're talking 4 to 6, maybe 8 tables, usually 4 to 6. Each table has 6 players. You're all running the same scenario, kinda. And so it was my first time. I'd never run it before, and I had played it, but I'd never run it before. So I kind of understood it. I knew the rules. I read the scenario like 4 times. It's very confusing. As a keeper, it's very confusing. And yeah, there was a point in time where I'm like, holy smokes, hold on a second. I got to go talk to Corey hold on a second. I'll be right back. Everybody grab a water, go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Go across the conference room. Say, hey man, I gotta bother you a second. He's like, sure, what's up? And it was like no more than a minute or 2. Like, here's kind of the deal. Is this right? Like, I don't know what to do. And they're waiting over there. Yeah, that's fine. Just go with this, go that, and you'll be fine. Like, okay, back to the action. Not everybody has the ability to do that, but if you're like D&D Adventurers League, if you're doing that, if you're, free league, free agent, and you're running scenarios, and some people have those, hey, are you familiar with this scenario? Oh yeah, I've ran it like 3 or 4 times. I'm kind of at this point. What do? Just, yeah, let them do it. It'll be fine, right? Whatever. Roger, got to go ready for my 5e game. Yeah, man. I hope it helped, Roger. And I know most of this stuff. And some GMs they miss, and some of them are so intrinsic to a single one shot, one session, 4-6 hour game, beginning to end, and they get caught up. And it's almost like you have to put enough of these things into place and not go too far. And some you have to kind of dial up or down. If you're going to run 5th edition, everybody at the table's played 5th edition. You don't really need to get into the freaking weeds about the rules. But if nobody ever has played Feng Shui and you're running that, well, this is kind of how you got to explain it and boil it down to some really brass tacks. Some of the best games of Savage Worlds, and forget about it, I mean, nobody knew Savage Worlds. So none of the rules had to come into play if I got them wrong, or it didn't get held up because I was unsure. I could just make a judgment call on the fly that made sense to the players without having to go through the manual. And so sometimes that helps. So then I can go, oh, okay, I don't need to elaborate on that. Reel that back, push more of this out. So it is very situational. It all depends on the game and the players at the table and the scenario you're trying to pull off. Ty, I think in some cases you have to think a little bit about what your character's motivation is or why play this character. Yeah. Right. And most one-shots, it's going to be about the group, right? Your group is this. Each individual character is going to be their own, but you're also not going to need to know their family lineage unless that's part of the game for some reason. Maybe it's very social and it's Game of Thrones and everything's like, I've got more clout than you because I'm really, I'm a Lannister, and a Lannister always pays their debts. And so that's who I am. That's what I do. That's fine. Each character has their strengths, but it's really about getting through the scenario, leaning on each other's players' characters to kind of get them through the obstacles that you throw in front of them. And the sneaky guy, we'll go sneak. Do that thing. Okay, it's fight time. Great. You need to go and fight. But you don't need to know the family. Like, I was born and, you know, my parents were eaten by orcs and Well, I play 5e if you could play ICRPG. Yeah, I suppose. That's another thing I would say with one shots as well. And it goes into like kind of teeing things up. Like, what am I expecting when as a player, for us, when we sit down at a table and we've had good game master experiences or bad game master experiences for one shots, usually at conventions, what has made them really good and what components have made them really bad? And if we keep those in our brains, we can pull off a good one shot. We really can. I really liked how they did this. And frankly, you could be playing a game and you could sit down and say, I'm playing 5e, great. This is how things work in 5e. But the game master, the DM could say, for this purpose, I don't run initiative like this. Initiative, I just start here and you go. We don't roll, and when we don't roll for damage. And somebody might be like, oh, that sucks. Well, so be it. But you could just introduce house rules right at the beginning to say, because there's time and sometimes combat can take a little bit longer than usual if we go the conventional method, I've kind of introduced some things I like to do. So when I start initiative, if we go us versus them, I have one player roll for the table. You guys can choose who that is. That's another thing. If you get that, then I can get into quagmire. I'm just going to start going around the table. You roll for initiative first. Go ahead. Great. You guys win. Next person starts in the combat. Everybody be like, oh, keep going. As long as it doesn't, you're not like it's totally crazy. Like, well, there isn't really any initiative in this game or whatever. That might be a little too far. But if you have some home rules to make things a little bit smoother and it's worked for you, then fine, great. And I take that from a little bit of the ICRPG, right? They do clockwise initiative and, next time you roll initiative first. Now in this round or this time, great. You lose, bad guys go, then the next person, then go clockwise around. Like this, you just need to keep it going. There's no question on who's going. I don't have to read the numbers down. 20, 14, 16, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 9. Okay. Like it's just, you go. Have you ever had a one shot become a campaign? No, I have not, but I could. I mean, all the one shots I've run for Delta Green, I could just say, hey, Larry, Roger, Eileen was in that game and Ray Otis. And I could literally just say, hey, if you guys want to keep playing, Forbidden Lands game wasn't necessarily one shot. I didn't know how long we would play. So that I wouldn't really consider it. So the quick answer is not necessarily, Ty. I have not. Kelly, gotta go. See ya. Thanks for stopping by. Good to see you. Have a good weekend. So, Kelly, I would have liked to pick Kelly's brain because a lot of people were concerned, not a lot, a few people had voiced concern because she ran Tales from the Loop at BSRCon and her game was 6 hours, and she had some setting up to do. And that was kind of wanting to make sure things were set up properly and presented properly and then the play and that she wouldn't run out of time. People played in the game and it went off without a hitch. And she may, with the allotted time, some of the folks that cram things into a 15-minute, 30-minute, an hour, well, then you only get 3 hours to play the game. Well, with Kelly's, she's going to probably have a full 4 hours of nice game time, which is fantastic. So, don't be afraid to make a one-shot longer than you might think it is. One of the things that kind of threw me off in some games is like getting thrown into the mix right away. And I don't mean in media res as much as, okay, here we go. And the DM doesn't introduce themselves. They don't talk about what the game's about necessarily. It's like, well, we're playing D&D. It's like D&D, right? Yeah, okay, but who are we and what are we doing? I mean, it can be that, but just say it. Like, it's AD&D. Here's the pre-gens. Pick them. All right. You start, at least go off of the description that you put in the event to kind of give us a little bit of context of where we are, who are we playing, and what is our purpose? Like, what are we supposed to do? What are we going to accomplish? And sometimes it may just be like, you're in a dungeon. You've been in here for 2 days. You've gotten a little lost, but you find yourself here. You're outside a door in a 10 by 10, part of the corridor. You can go left or right. And some people love that. And that may just be it. Like, the purpose is to get out, find treasure, kill a few monsters, and call it a day. Lucas says the players requested it, but I am turning a one-shot into a starter for a campaign. You make your own luck, 13th age. It's good stuff and free. Sweet. Victor says is rather up to a half-hour dead time at the end of a con session just in case we need it. Time can always be filled. You can't get back the time you've lost. Yeah. Running a scenario and getting done early, in my opinion, is better than trying to rush it. Because when we rush, and I've had it done. And I've been that. I mean, I've been the GM that's like rushed at the end. This isn't working. It's going to suck because I ran out of time. So, err on the side of less is more kind of thing. That's why I think sometimes when you get into encounters, even in a dungeon crawl, I'll give you a situation story. I think I've brought this up before. Chad Parrish from Dead Game Society ran AD&D at GaryCon. Here's I don't remember the name of it. Might have been a module, actually. Put the character sheets down. We chose. All right. You guys are creeping into a dungeon at it's a 10-foot wide hall, goes down 50 feet, and there's a door. Above the door, there's a hole that leads up to the sky that's shining down into the dungeon right in front of the door. What do you guys do? We stood in front of that door for probably an hour and a half. An hour and a half of a 4-hour slot. Well, light coming down in front of the door. Do I detect magic? I'm going to throw a coin. Yeah, you detect magic. Oh, I throw a coin through the light. I take my pole and put it through the light. You guys find, do a trap. We didn't have a thief either, which is an oversight that he had, was like, he didn't even put the thief down on the table to be chosen. So he's like, who's playing the thief? We're like, all looking around at each other. He's like, oh my God, I forgot to put the thief down on the table. So all the thief skills were kind of thrown out the freaking window. And it was terrible. I don't know if I would blame Chad for that situation necessarily. Maybe there's no light. Maybe it's just maybe the door's open. There's no need to unlock it. There's no need to futz with it. There's no light that's going to throw, it's not Indiana Jones and the Temple, or the Indiana Jones, and the Last Crusade, whatever, Temple of Doom. I don't know. So it's just something you got to be aware of to kind of make sure you don't run into a brick wall. Yeah, I do too, Victor. Feeling bad when I have to rush an ending. Same here. So yeah, you'd be surprised at how long 2-3 kind of encounters take in a one shot. Don't be afraid to have things just start falling. Like, hey, you're in combat. Oh, you guys are taking them down. Bam, 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 bam. It's all right. No big deal. It's a one shot. You pull punches. I don't know. Make it challenging, but they got to get going. the one thing you wouldn't want to do if you're trying to get things to go along is start throwing more and more and more and more and more things at the party in this one room if they're trying to get out of the room to the next thing. So there you go. But we have been on for 3 hours. 3 hours. That is a full 3 hours worth, I hope. Do me a favor. I'm going to take off. I wish you all the best. Of course, keep gaming. Down below, any comments about one-shots that you think I might have missed or that has worked for you, put down below in the comments. If you found any value in this at all, do me a favor, give me a like, subscribe, and you can get notifications if you are so up to it. Otherwise, I'm going to conclude this and wrap it up. So have a great weekend, and remember, be a positive force in the tabletop RPG hobby. Thanks, everyone.